Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Truth Be Told Minuteman Report. This is your host, Robert Hensley, coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in North America. I like to call it the bunker. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about... the title of today's episode is Stealing the Matrix. So yes, we're going to be talking about the film, The Matrix, the Matrix franchise. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the Terminator franchise because, and this is an old urban legend, right? So it feels like we're disproving or maybe proving aspects of an urban legend. So now you may have heard this back in like 2004. You may have heard it again maybe last year around the release of Matrix, the last Matrix movie, Matrix Resurrections. But there was, an urban legend stating that there was a woman who wrote books in the 1970s that were stolen from her by Warner Brothers, and that those books were the basis for the Terminator franchise and the Matrix franchise that James Cameron, the Wachowskis, executive producers, Fox, Warner Brothers had basically ripped this author off. And that she won the biggest settlement ever in film history, walking away with like $3 billion from these franchises and owning the copyrights. And so let's talk about that for a minute, right? So this urban legend started with a woman named Sophia Stewart, who is an author. She lives in Las Vegas. She's a divorced single mother of two. And in 1981, not the 70s, in 1981, she published a book called The Third Eye. Now, aspects of this book, apparently, she feels, are very closely related to the storylines of the Terminator and the Matrix franchises. So she claims that in 1980 something, 86, I believe, she saw an ad that at the time Andy and Larry Wachowski, who are now Lily and Lana Wachowski, were seeking science fiction stories to be made into a comic book, and that she had submitted her manuscript of the Third Eye to the filmmakers, and kind of never heard anything back. And then skip forward a couple of years, and she sees The Matrix in 1999 and is like, hey, this is my work. And then somebody else turned her on to the Terminator, and she's like, that is also my work. And then James Cameron admits that he stole some of the aspects of the film from science fiction writers. He actually ended up paying out to one writer who he had borrowed heavily from. And she says, I have a case for copyright infringement. And so she files a ginormous lawsuit against James Cameron, Gail Ann Hurd, the Wachowskis, Warner Brothers, Fox. I can't remember. There are a couple of other plaintiffs in there. And basically copyright infringement, racketeering, all this stuff. And so she claims that she opened an investigation with the FBI, that she was given irrefutable proof that they stole her work, her intellectual property, and she went trudging forth into this thing. And now she comes out, and I'm not exactly sure when she comes out with this, but at some time, the first time I kind of remember hearing this was last year, but she comes out saying that she had been awarded $3 billion, and then she sues her attorney for some stuff that he did wrong, and she gets another, $1 million, and then she's been granted the copyrights to these franchises and they can't do anything without her and blah, blah, blah. That's the story, right? So now here's the thing. We haven't talked a lot about it on the show, but I'm a content creator, right? Minuteman Report, doing podcasts, writing movies, directing films. That's what we do here. We create content, and I am definitely not a person who would stand around and let someone steal my intellectual property out from under me. But at the same time, I also know that in this industry, you really have to kind of like have, hard evidence to prove that someone stole your idea. Because there are a lot of people who have very similar ideas all the time, right? And you can't copyright an idea. You can copyright it once you've written it down, but you can't just have the idea and somebody take it. So here's where we back up and we find out that even though as recent as last night on a podcast, Sophia Stewart was claiming that she is the mother of the Matrix, that she created the literature that would become the Terminator and the Matrix franchises. Now, she goes into detail in these interviews where she's talking about like she was in the room and worked on the scripts and she wrote these movies. Even going into interviews online where she's, talking about the creation of the characters, even though in her book that was published in 1981, the characters they don't have those names. So anyway, here's when you start doing a little digging and you go into this trying to find information about, because, you start thinking like if she really was granted copyright and ownership of these projects, the studios, all these people, they would have pulled them off the market, right? They wouldn't have been able to move forward with this, with the Sarah Connor Chronicles. They wouldn't have been able to create the Matrix Resurrection, all of this stuff they wouldn't have been able to do because, if they're not going to make money off of it and it's all hers, then she's going to bear the brunt of, creating new distribution models and things for the films because she owns them, right? None of that ever happened. There were no embargoes, no nothing. So we find out that according to PolitiFact, that it's a hoax. Right? It's not true. So she was never awarded any money, no billions of dollars, right? She did file the lawsuit. That part's real. She is a writer and a paralegal, and she does continue to maintain that these films were based on her ideas, but her lawsuits were dismissed in 2004. There's no settlement, and while they're claiming now that it was a $3 billion settlement, she was really only trying to get 2.5. So even though on her website, she's calling herself Mother of the Matrix, and she's still selling copies of her book, and she's, kind of created like a third edition of her online or her ebook that includes more information if people want to read about her case. But here's the thing, right? The case was dismissed in June 2005. The judge ruled that she and her attorneys failed to produce any evidence to support her claims and did not demonstrate a striking similarity between her work and the films. Right? So even though she's seeing that there's a similarity between what she wrote in 1981 and what these other screenwriters wrote and turned into films later, there wasn't enough of a connection, right? And so that's dismissed. So then she filed a lawsuit against her attorneys who were representing her, accusing them of breach of contract and malpractice. And so in 2014, a judge did say that she was entitled to $316,000. I mean, $300,000, that's nothing to sneeze at, but that was the only money that she was awarded in this case. Now, here's the thing. these rumors kind of all started from an October 2004 article that was written by a student reporter for the Salt Lake Community College Globe newspaper. The story, which was titled "Mother of the Matrix Victorious," mistakenly said that Stewart would recover damages from the film and was receiving one of the biggest payoffs in the history of Hollywood. And the article's full of errors, right? The student reporter actually mistook that Stewart was successful in a counter dismissal motion, and took that to mean that she had won the case, which is not the same thing. In fact, the student newspaper did print a retraction saying that in reference to the recent article entitled "Mother of the Matrix Victorious," some information has been deemed misleading. Miss Sophia Stewart has not yet won her case against Joel Silver, Time Warner, and the Wachowski brothers. The decision on October 4th enabled Ms. Stewart to proceed with her case, as all attempts to have it dismissed were unsuccessful. Ms. Stewart's case will proceed through to the Central District Court in California. Now, before they could correct the error, that story got picked up and kind of spread across the internet. And now that inaccuracy has spread as kind of an urban legend. Ms. Stewart continues to go into the media and present these inaccuracies as fact. I think she may actually believe it herself. But I don't know, it's a hard. I'm trying very hard not to be rude about it. But when there are legitimate cases of intellectual property being stolen and misused, and people being railroaded by attorneys and studios, and because it does happen, unfortunately, but it's business. It happens in every business, in every corner of a capitalist society. This happens. She just makes it really hard for the people who are actually victims, because I don't know how you can possibly claim to have won $3 billion in a lawsuit and not actually have any money to show for it, right? If this woman had won the copyrights and won all the money, she would be one of the most powerful people in Hollywood, especially in the sci-fi genre, right? I mean, when you think about the Terminator and the Matrix and how seminal they are as far as kind of stirring the pot, so to speak, getting the public interested in, quantum theory and the ideas of quantum reality and quantum simulation, and time travel and all of these things, the movie has grossed billions and billions of dollars altogether. So, so it just seems like a lot to claim to not have anything to back you up, right? And so even though she claims that she has documentation from the FBI stating that her intellectual property was stolen and is actually the precursor to these films, she doesn't really have a lot to show for it, right? She never presented that information to the court, obviously, or the case never would have been dismissed. But as it stands, Sophia Stewart is selling copies of The Third Eye via her website and also via Amazon. There was another book written called Sophia Stewart, The Mother of the Matrix, which kind of documents her lawsuit and what happened to her. But again, I know this is a little outside of the Minuteman Report and what we talk about here on kind of the Truth Be Told brand, somewhat. But I just thought this was interesting enough that I wanted to talk today about, debunking an urban legend. Like, I wish Ms. Stewart the best, but I really wish that she would kind of cool it on the fakeness, and allow the people who are really being victimized and dealing with, having their intellectual property stolen, let them take the spotlight for a little bit. So that, my folks, is the story for today. That is Stealing the Matrix. want to thank you all for listening. As always, remember there are 3 opportunities every week for new content from Truth Be Told. There's the Minuteman Report every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. Bonnie Burkert on Wednesdays with Truth Be Told Transformation, same time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. And of course, Tony Sweet on Fridays with the original Truth Be Told, same time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. We really like that time slot across the week. And coming in January, we will have our Spanish language version of Truth Be Told called Decir. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's Tell the Truth is the translation, and it's hosted by the Latinx music artist Metaphor, and he'll be talking about a lot of, strange and unusual topics on his show as well. It'd be part of the Truth Be Told brand. And if you have stories, ideas, things you want us to look into, other urban legends you want us to debunk, feel free to reach out. Hit me up, send me an email, reportminuteman@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. And as always, take care, and until next week, stay true. Have a great afternoon, everyone.